Hi, everybody. Welcome to my channel. This is Nate, and today I have a wonderful guest. This is Ness,
Hi, everyone.
and you might recognize her. She's been a fantastic moderator on the channel. And today she's not moderating, she's actually a guest here on the channel to discuss the topic of astrology because she's an astrologer. And I actually been fortunate enough to receive some of her work on my personal astrology, and I really loved it. And so I wanted to use this time to understand a little bit her practice, learn a little bit about astrology because I'm fairly novice myself
Mm,
on the topic. But then we also, but I also believe that you, Ness, you have also some predictions for the month of June for all of us. So
yes.
I think that this would be something that I'm sure everyone will be very interested since we are starting this new month. So
Yes.
first, before we get started, thank you again for all your support with the moderation, you and the other moderators. And maybe my first question for Eunice is how did you get into the world of astrology?
So I actually grew up with astrology. I come from my mom's side of the family comes from India, and India is like, like a billion or 2 billion people where woo-woo is not something reserved for the corners. Woo is like in the water. Everyone is woo. So I actually had my chart read when I was born, and I had it almost like read every year. And in Indian kind of Vedic astrology, when a child is born, they someone can read do the chart for the child, and it's their entire life.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like when are they going to have good periods? When are they going to have negative periods? Are they going to get married? How many kids are they going to be financial? So I had that done when I was a child, and I just always grew up with astrology. I always grew up with getting my chart read and talking with astrology with others in my family and for anyone who's listening who've been to India or have been to kind of like Thailand or Indonesia and have been to places that are a lot more spiritual in nature. Those areas are the woo is kind of everywhere. And in India, like the mayor would get his chart read, or the prime minister would get his chart read. So, I grew up with astrology, and then I went to kind of college and became very analytical and math and kind of pushed the woo side away. But I think like many folks in the YouTube community, they kind of swing back to these kind of spiritual practices. And like many of you, in the chat that have modded or in the chat, then you're drawn to this world, then you start to kind of go, okay, well, I can actually help them out. And so I'm
Uh-huh.
really drawn to do astrology with YouTube because I find it very similar to the tarot, to
Uh-huh.
the kind of the dowsing rods, to Lenormand.
Uh-huh.
Like all those. I'm learning that myself.
Oh,
Um,
excellent.
yeah, the mediumship, and I think it's just another tool that you can have in your toolkit.
Of course, of course. Are you, I assume, when you're making some big decisions into your life, you are actually checking your own personal chart and
Yes. Not always. Like, sometimes life gets so busy, I don't really feel the need to kind of look at what the tarot what the astrology is for the next month, etc. But when things are going sideways, I
yeah.
will I will look at astrology. I look at it as a tool where you can see where things are, and it doesn't mean it's like written, completely fated where you're not gonna it's like predetermined. I know I still have free will within all of it, but I will use it if I know I'm having like big life events, like a
Okay.
move, or if I'm trying to understand how I'm going to feel, perhaps like my birthday, like is it going to be a good birthday? Is it going to be a bad birthday? And so yeah, I will use astrology as a tool to kind of forecast particular things for myself. But I'm not super strict about it. I might check for myself like once or twice a month.
Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I actually don't read very much for myself, but it would
Hmm.
be the same thing when there are some big life events. I
Oh,
like to
interesting.
do a reading, yeah, just to see a little
Oh,
bit
that's a good question.
what the
That's a
energies
good,
are.
yeah. Do
Yes.
you actually pull tarot for yourself?
Yeah, I do. I do. I know a lot of people say it's very difficult, but what it's very important is to remove the emotional aspect.
Mm,
So you have to prepare yourself and ask the question as if it was for a completely different person with your
okay.
name, and then you
Okay.
pull the cards and you try to be as unbiased as you can. Yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting. So you just, as you, to prepare yourself to read for yourself, you
Yes.
really almost envision it's someone else actually asking
Yep.
the question.
That's
Oh,
my trick.
interesting.
That's my
Oh,
trick.
okay. I'll have to
Yep.
try that. When I pull tarot for myself, it's 50% hit or miss. So yeah, astrology, there's less of that because it's more math. It's
Yep.
more like math equations and understanding within a set, like the order of operations, like what has more hierarchy in this, if a bunch of planets are in a unique configuration, you'll have a sense of which combination story is more important and which of the ones actually get neuterized. I cannot say the word.
Yes, I get the
um,
point. Yep.
yeah, get exterminated out. So and so you can make a sense with that, but that's when you understand the hierarchies and the math about it. Um, and so less bias when it comes to
Yes.
to
True.
reading for
I
yourself
believe that
than
too.
tarot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it I personally don't know much about astrology. It's never been my primary tool. I, of course, just recently, I mean, when I say recently, in the last few years, in the last decade, just learn as I go without
Hmm.
really putting enough time to learn. But obviously, a lot of my clients are very savvy. A number
Hmm.
of them are very savvy. So I try to know enough of the basics so that I can understand their question when they share a particular aspect of their chart.
Oh,
Um,
interesting. As part of the reading, they'll ask
yes,
you like to
yes,
pull
I have
cards on something that happens in astrology. Wow, yeah.
people that are
I've done
very,
that.
very, particular, like they introduce themselves with their chart sometimes.
Oh,
So,
interesting. Yeah.
so it doesn't really tell me enough to me as it does to them, but at least it
Hmm.
gives me a sense of why they're asking a particular question or why they want to validate an aspect that they see in the astrology with
Hmm.
a card or from psychic intuition.
Yeah, I think this is what you hit up on a point, which I think is the coolest thing about this world. This I call it the woo-woo world, but it really almost requires a leap of faith or like a
Uh-huh.
leap that happens where you go instead of going blindly into the future and just reacting to what happens, you actually you kind of do these things, whether it's tarot or astrology, to kind of see what the dominant energies are coming up. And I think this is interesting because I think when you can start to, whether you pull tarot or whether you do astrology, you start to get flavors of what's coming up. Okay, like I'm using this metaphor of like, okay, I'm looking at the month of June and I'm seeing a lot of like metaphor of like food because I cook a lot, but like I'm seeing a lot of Mexican type of energy, like Mexican food recipes and like spices and like I don't know, produce or something. And so you might, when you understand and can name the type of energies that are coming
Uh-huh.
up, you kind of know how to work with it. Or if that's kind of like or if you're not, instead of Mexican, you can know you're having, more of like sushi and like raw fish. Like I think once you get a sense of what something is and what something is not in terms of feeling into the energies of what's happening or allowing these tools, whether it's tarot or astrology, to help you start to define what you're looking at or what's happening, I think it's very empowering. But it does require that leap
Yes.
to kind of step in um, and just see what comes up in terms of these tools.
I like that you said that because I've come across people who's ask me, what do you do? And they say, some people say, well, I believe or I don't believe in that. And it really bothered me to a certain point because for me, it's not about believing.
Yeah.
It's about receiving an information and deciding what you do with it. It's like a
Mm.
gift. You
Hmm.
receive a
Hmm.
gift, you can do whatever you want. You can accept it and use it. You can put aside, you can even resell it, but or regift it, but
Yeah.
it's not believing. To me, like a religion has that aspect of
Yeah.
belief system.
Yeah.
The metaphysical world is about understanding more than
Yeah.
believing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like a sense, like they always say
Yes,
that's like a sixth sense. So if you are hearing something and no one else has ears, no one's going to ask you if you believe that you're hearing something. You'll be
exactly.
like, I'm hearing something. And, like,
Exactly. It's like, I pull cards and it could be, well, it happens sometimes. The
yeah.
person would say, but that doesn't resonate with me.
Hmm.
And to me, that doesn't mean like it's wrong.
Yeah.
That means that we have not come to an understanding as how does it connect to your reality,
Yeah.
and we have to put it aside and look back later to understand what it meant. But
Yes.
there's no such thing as right or wrong. It's more about an understanding of the messages. And I
Yes.
feel like it's also, from my limited experience of astrology, it's also true where the look back also allows you to understand what you
Yes.
didn't understand back then.
Yeah. That's a great, and I think that's great when you offer tarot readings with that are recorded or people take notes and they can go look back. I think so that's an interesting point. Um, you mentioned about how people need to believe, like whether they believe this stuff is real or not.
Uh,
And I talk about that leap that you kind of have to
uh-huh.
just go, okay, well, let's try it. Let's just see. And I think one thing that's really great is about looking back, whether it's tarot readings or even looking back at astrology. You can look back and you look at the elements. And I think I'll do a reading for folks and I will say, okay, this is what's coming up. I'm looking at these configurations. This could be a death. This could just be someone in your family having a hard time. But I'm just giving the range of possibilities of what these particular configurations will be. And then I'll get emails a month later and they will say, okay, within, you said this and this is actually what happened. And this is what this
Yes,
and this, because I think this is the really cool thing about this whole YouTube woo-woo world is you need to kind of just take the leap and you need to take the leap and you need to just see what comes in because a lot of the times you might not get the exact thing, but you'll get the range. You'll get the range of what something will be. And so you having a range that within this whole possibility of things, it's going to be basically within this range is such a gift. It's something you can
yes,
use because you can tune out this and not focus on this as much. You know that possibly this is the range you're going to work with. And so with astrology, you often have these ranges. Like, okay, when it comes to your love in your chart for the next year. Like this is the range of things we're seeing possible. Like maybe this is actually a great year for a romance. So, go out there and be with people. Or this could be, hey, you're gonna maybe have some crises in your relationships, like get ready, make sure people are not gonna, or people are showing up the way they should. And so I think like I just call this the leap, almost like the fool, the tarot.
yes, 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 yes.
Like when you take a leap in this world and you just try it and you just see, especially retroactively, like let's
Uh-huh.
say you pull a tarot every day and you do it for 30 days, then look back and just see what happened. Like just take the leap and see what happens. And if you're like, hey, I'm 30%, like or I'm 30% wrong but I'm 70% like this is something you can use then you don't have to know why it's working um, but it's working. I think with astrology too, I think I hit my own when I share it with folks, like that same, like, I don't know if I believe, and I get it, but my biggest pivot moment for me in college to like, okay, maybe this astrology thing isn't a cultural thing that I'm supposed to outgrow with my family. Like, maybe there's something here because I actually noticed all my friends were particular signs. Like I had a lot of
Uh,
Aquarius friends.
yep.
I had a lot of Cancer friends. So I had all these birthdays I had to go to. And if it's like, I think one month I had like 9 birthdays. I'm like, what's going on? But then it was like crickets. Crickets there.
Yep.
So for folks, yeah, if you're in the chat, you might think about like you might have a particular month or a couple months where you're going to everyone's birthdays and then certain moment, and that shows your compatibility, like which signs you're actually you're really drawn to. And so I think when you're on your astrology journey and it feels like if you're in that is it real or is it not real phase, like if you're not ready to take the leap, take the leap and just use like do an experiment with a time frame,
Uh-huh.
see what's something. For example, I just did a video yesterday with Deb Freebird about June's astrology that I'm also going to be talking with you today about
Yeah.
June's astrology and what's happening, and then you can check back the video, a month from now
Yes.
and see
Yes.
see how we did and see what we picked up. And then if it's actually doing something, then use it as a tool. And if it's not, if it's like, then it's not a tool for you to use. So I think that's just, use it as a gift. You don't have to understand it. We don't have to understand why a hammer is why
Yes.
it is and why it's configured, but it's just a hammer. So yeah, I'm very passionate about it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Are there some particular things related to astrology that you would like to share with us, particularly as it relates to major understandings or misunderstandings or the route for people to get on the astrology journey?
Yeah, I think I have some slides on this, but I think just at a high level, um, you know, you there's a couple we're in an interesting cultural shift. I'll just say that. We're in an interesting cultural shift. For example, YouTube is here. So a lot of us are connecting here on
Yep.
YouTube in a way that possibly we wouldn't 10 years ago. And there's like a lot of things that have happened. There's internet speeds are better than what they were, years ago. So we can actually hold a signal like a video like this. I think COVID changed a lot of people to go online and to connect in a way where they didn't connect before. And I think with astrology in particular, we have a lot of digital tools to help calculate some of those configurations. So I can look at a chart and I can start to, um, look at the configurations. But back in the day, it would be a lot harder to understand where things were before we had the digital software tools. So I, as an astrologer, don't need to pull out a calculate, like pull out
Yeah.
calculus and try to figure things out or have this like there's actually there used to be a table. There would be a table where it would show every degree something is, and then you would just have to look at the table and make inferences about where things were. So it was like this big Excel sheet back in the day. And so now you have mathematical equations that can create the chart, can create where
Yep.
where planets are. And so I think one thing that's really cool with astrology is for me as an astrologer, I can look at that and I can start making interpretations for folks. But I think one thing that we're also having a surgence is like this almost DIY of astrology that a
Uh-huh.
lot of people can start to do astrology themselves, whether they use an online tool, whether they have an app. There's actually really great apps that will help you kind of forecast the week and etc.
Uh-huh.
But I think one thing I've noticed is folks need to kind of start before they can go do those tools, they need to understand more of those fundamentals. They need to
Yeah.
understand what the moon is,
Yeah.
what Mars is, what Jupiter is. And I think um, it's this concept of astrology is not this big mountain to climb anymore. There is a couple little blocks you need to,
Yep.
get on, but then
Building
it's kind of
blocks. Yeah.
like, yeah, these building blocks, but then it's pretty smooth sailing because the digital tools exist in a way that haven't. And the digital space focus on other things. They focus on Excel tools and sales tools and delivering you food faster, etc. And now we're seeing this resurgence of tech tools for astrology. So the
True.
Chani app that's very popular. It's kind of been popular for the past 4 years, and so I think one area I want to update folks' belief about astrology is the tools have changed. So you actually just need a little bit more of a nudge of learning, and then you can actually have your whole journey with astrology. Like you can kind of
Leverage
start.
the tools. Yeah.
Yeah, you just need a little, or before maybe you had to be trained for a year and like that. But the tools, it's kind of like before we had the calculator, like we would have to do a lot of the math
Yep. Yep.
calculations. And so I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, I think it was like the fourth grade or the fifth grade, I wasn't allowed to use a calculator because I had to prove I knew how to do the math equations.
Yes.
And my teacher we had this like license, like kind of like a driver's license. So we had to take a test on if we can do the calculations without a calculator. And if we passed the test, we
Then
could
you
use
could
a
have.
calculator in
Yes.
class.
Uh-huh. Yes.
And so it's kind of like that, where before astrology was you had to do everything hand and etc. And then now you can kind of once you understand the fundamental, you can graduate and you can use these tools and you can start to go, okay, well, if the moon is going to be over here, this might be how my next month will be, or if Venus will be over there, this could be how my next week will be, and you can use that just the same as pulling tarot, as you know doing the dowsing rods or other kind of tools that you would
Yep.
use to do that leap into into the future and to feel kind of what's to come.
That makes a lot of sense. And I mean, I've seen some of those apps, and they're also very interesting as they look. The one that I've seen, they look at your personal chart, they give you some trends, and they also allow you to add the charts of your friends, your partner, your family
Yes.
members, your
Yes.
colleagues, and so obviously those relationships are by nature very different
Yeah.
from each other. And
Yeah.
so they're able to tune in and understand the different aspects of your chart as it relates to the nature of the relationship you have with
Yes.
another
So
person.
so what I think generally what you're describing is called a synastry chart.
Okay.
Synastry. So that's when you look at one person's natal chart, which is when they were the minute they were conceived, where the planets were kind of in the sky, and that's like that unique fingerprint that a person has. And so it doesn't mean it's who you are completely set in stone. It's just like the dominant energies. So when you're driving straight, you're going to tend to drive to the right because it's just your tendencies. Your natal chart is always about tendencies. It's not about completely, faded. You cannot be anything else. This is the only thing you're going to be. And so you look at two people's natal charts and then you put them on top of each other. And you actually see some very interesting combinations. You can see your communication style. So where your Mercuries are they very, close? Are they helping each other or are they like opposing? And if your Mercuries are opposing, that can be a very, very difficult kind of thing to overcome. One thing I want to say just about like synastry charts and romance. A lot of folks will do a synastry chart for romance, like, am I compatible, my partner, and
Yeah.
that. And a lot of astrologers will say this as well, that you can see famous kind of couples or famous people who've been together for years, and they either have like the best kind of synastry, and you're like, okay, that makes sense, or they have the worst, and somehow they make it work. Because one thing that's really interesting is like, for example, I grew up with like a Gemini mother, and so I am used to that Gemini energy because
All
I grew up
right.
with a Gemini mother. My chart might not say I'm compatible for Gemini folks, but because I have exposure to
Yes,
Gemini folks,
that's true.
this is another dimension to kind of
Yes,
synastry.
yes.
It's not just what you're born with. You could have siblings that were or parents, and then so you've been more indoctrinated to that type of energy. So it's less of a fight. So yeah, you can do a synastry chart and you can see compatibility. You can see areas where you are gonna be different in terms of how you manage your energy, how you process information, how you feel safe, how you feel, restored. And you can see also places where you are very similar. I just did a mother-daughter chart, actually to one of your members. Shout out to Cindy and Sam, and they had an amazing synastry chart where I've never seen this, where it was I can't remember exactly, but it was like one person's moon was on top of one person's Mercury and the other person's Mercury was on the other person's moon. So like this a very yeah, the chances of it happening were very rare. And it was really that they can actually really see each other. And really sense each other and know each other very like emotionally connected. And they are very connected, this mother-daughter. Um, and I thought that was just amazing. And what was really interesting in their chart too was I got to see often when we think about these mother parent child relationships, the energy can be like parent, bestowing into the child, and then,
Uh-huh.
that can be one directional in terms of culturally. But in their chart, it was actually I saw that the daughter actually had a lot of like this Uranus and creative energy in an area that the mom was really craving it. And so
Oh,
in a weird way, the daughter actually helped the mother in her evolution. So this
Yes.
was this really symbiotic relationship back and forth. And that's something you would see in a synastry chart. So yeah, if you want to look at your family members, you can look at your family members. You can look at business partners if you're going to work together
That's
to
right.
see like, okay, we have a similar communication style, but we have a different style when we are in conflict. Our Marses are in different
Yes.
places. Or our Marses are very similar, so we actually fight because that could be the same thing. If two people's Mars is in the same spot, that means that they can also fight the same way, and that almost blocks, because if two people fight the same way, it
Yes.
it creates this like, yeah,
I
mirroring effect.
I have a big thing for diversity in terms of relationships or teams where you find often that in a workplace where people say, we want to hire someone that will fit within the
Yes,
team.
it's
And a
yeah,
lot of
the tug of war.
times,
Yeah,
and a lot of times when people say that, I feel like they mean someone whose personality will be like the personality of the team.
yeah, the
But from
cultural
my
fit.
point of
Yeah,
view, it's a little bit different. I would rather hire someone that brings a different
yeah,
personality, almost like in a puzzle where you want different
yeah.
pieces of
The
the
part
puzzle
that you were,
rather than more of the same. And I
yes,
feel like there's a shift there in
yeah,
people's perception, and it could be a romantic relationship or a
yeah,
family relationship where you look for that, like in your example,
yeah,
that puzzle piece that completes
yes,
you rather
yes.
than the same one, because then what do you bring to each other?
Yes, I think you bring up a really good point with compatibility.
Yeah,
Whether compatibility is because you are very similar. I mean, we all have friends where folks are very similar. It's like they approach
yeah,
things very similar, and it's actually a nice ease. Like you can, like, okay,
yes,
that's great. I don't have to worry about this. Like, okay, I'm not having to climb a mountain to explain something, etc. But then there is also that, when you take a step back and you want to round out a group or you want to round out a project or you want to make sure there's no blind spots, you do want, especially for like a romantic compatibility, you want some differences, but you want that tension a bit, because that's where there's interest. That's where there's growth, especially for both folks. And that was interesting with the mother-daughter, that the daughter was providing a lot of growth for the mother, and that's actually a pull. That's a very homeostasis balanced thing where that ecosystem between those two individuals was very sustaining and very healthy in that regard because it was a mutual exchange.
yeah. A
Yeah,
little bit like a sports team where you want different players to have different abilities,
skill
not
sets.
all
Yes,
the same. Yeah,
yes. I mean, think about like family systems. Like often there'll be um the black sheep in a family, or I
yeah,
forget, there's different terms, like, I feel like Joseph Campbell has a different language for it, but basically a family system of one that irritates the family system because it's encouraging the family system to grow and evolve. And so yeah, you need that with astrology, and when you're looking at synastry, you are not looking for same, same, same. You are
yeah.
looking for a nice balance of, because there's sometimes things too opposing,
Of
too
course.
opposite. You're too far apart that it'll take an incredible amount of work for both of you to kind of bridge that gap and understand each other. But yes, um, that's what astrology is really great for. When you let's say if it's not just your chart, if it's for the collective, you can see when things are at that right balance and
Uh-huh.
it's nice tension. So like for example, squares. In astrology, so you have the wheel and you have things, and either things are like, 180 degrees or opposing, or they're like 90 degrees, or they're 120 degrees. And certain tensions are actually really negative, and certain ones are actually just the right spot. And so a square in astrology is 90 degrees, and because they are 90 degrees, they both rev each other up. They both, and so you actually get like double the energy of both planets. So
Uh-huh.
if you know how to work with the square, it's actually a bonus. It's like you get double the planets in your
All
chart.
right.
So let's say you have like a square with Mars, and Mars is like passion, energy, vitality. And maybe Venus. Maybe those are squaring in your chart. So let's say you're having a transit where those are gonna transiting Mars is gonna square your natal Venus. What that means is you're gonna have a lot of energy and passion wherever that is in your chart, and then your values and your money and is also going to be wrapped up. So there's a dialing up of your energy in your life in wherever that is. Like you'll have more energy, you'll feel more vitality. There's other aspects that can negate what I'm just saying, but most likely you'll have more energy, more passion, and then your money will also have be turned up as well. So this is something you can use in astrology, that when you know these certain things are happening and things are revved up, which is what you're saying, that right amount of tension, um, you can use that for your good.
Very
Yeah,
interesting. And
yeah,
so this is where, you people, when they have those questions, we can go to an astrologer. Obviously, those apps or technology or even an AI app that use tarot can only go so far. So
yeah.
this
There's
is
a
where you
there's a
go
good yeah
to
an
someone
astrologer to
who
see more
has the
specific
ability.
things. Yes.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, they might mention a square in the apps, but yeah, to really I think what the apps are really good is like giving you a report of what's happening.
Right.
Um and that's just where they are right now. And then an astrologer or you when you have more experience on your astrology journey, you will know how to translate that to actionable stuff in your life. So, for example, when I have particular negative astrology or where it is in my chart, I go, okay, I need a meal prep. Like, I need to make sure I have a lot of food in my freezer because this week's going to be different, or I'm going to go get to the store and make sure I have extra, toilet paper and hand soap. And just because, something might happen there, or it'll give me more peace of mind. So, I think with great thing with working with an astrologer, or when you are much further in your astrology journey yourself, you know how to translate that into actionable outcome for your
Right.
life. That's the thing and maybe in 5 or 10 years the apps will get better at that, but that's kind of where astrologers really serve well.
I understand.
But that early bit, those building blocks to astrology, to understand Mars, to understand Venus, like that is, I've noticed some folks in the YouTube area feel a little bit intimidated by,
Uh-huh.
and I think that's a big motivation for me actually to come onto YouTube because I want to help with that bit. That
All
it's
right.
actually not that hard, and I think whether you do a reading with me or you do with someone else, I think once you start to have a reading and well, your Mars is in Leo, and what does that mean? Like, and then when your Venus is over here, what does that mean? Because when you understand what something is, then you understand what something is not, and so you can work with that. So I think starting to have vocabulary and starting to learn about these things, you will you can use it as a tool. It's really amazing. Like it's really, really amazing as a tool because tarot's great. Like tarot's great. Mediumship's great. It's great for someone just to feel into but to look at astrology and just to go, okay, in this week, and there's something really beautiful about the science of it, the math and science of it, that it's able to, honestly, you could have every month for the rest of your life done with astrology.
And maybe a point of connection or compatibility or actually where it complements each other is we know, in card reading, it's always a bit challenging to time things. And so
Yes,
astrology has
that's a
such
good
this
point.
power of
That
time
is a good,
that
that is
is,
actually,
yeah,
and it's bound by it. That's an interesting
yeah,
thing because that's its main artery, or main axis is time. Yes, and that's a really good point. I've done readings where someone will have a court case and they'll reach out and I will look at the energies a week before, a week after. I had another reading where someone was having a big work event. They were actually going to be flying to Germany and battle a big case. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is actually amazing. You've got one of the best astrology that day. It's actually pretty positive.
yeah.
Buy an amazing suit, for that court case. Like you're gonna have your Olivia Pope court moment. So yeah, I think with I think you bring up an amazing, great point that time is something that astrology can do that tarot and like the dowsing rods are just not as fitted to be as, yeah,
Structured that
yeah,
way.
structured that way.
Yes.
They're not,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
You mentioned since we are talking about your consultation,
Yeah.
if people want to reach you, how do they? I can see your email here on the Zoom,
Yes.
but yes,
Yes. I actually have a little slide for that. I can show that. You can just email me, astrologynesss, at gmail.com.
gmail.com.
Yes, and I'm doing readings for $88.88 right now. Just the power, numerology, the power of
Yep.
eight. And I'm really passionate about doing 2025 transit readings. So the 2025 transit reading is what I actually did for you, Nate, where we looked
Yes.
at the planets that were changing signs. And I'm super passionate about it, but it's really important because I actually have, let me share I have a little graphic on this because I think it's just so super duper um, important. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this is the 2025 transit
Yep.
readings. And this is so important because since November of 2024 to July of 2025, this is like 7 months or something. Um, five of the outer planets are changing signs: Pluto, Neptune, Saturn, Jupiter, and Uranus. And
Wow.
from what I've read with the kind of astrologers I've subscribed to, this hasn't happened for like thousands of years. Like this is
Wow.
such a big deal. And basically, we are already feeling it. Because what this means, this is like new world order. This is new era. This is
Uh-huh.
BCE, CE kind of energy. And because it's five planets, you're not just having it in one area of your life, you're likely having it in multiple areas of your life. So it's not just like um, someone in your family has passed and it's like family karma. You're probably having family and then maybe a friend thing happening at the same time, or you're having a health thing and then you're having a back to school moment at the same, like or you're having, your kids are having an issue and then your house is flooding at the same time. So like
Uh-huh.
it's multiple areas of your life. And so yeah, I think I'm really passionate about doing 2025 transit readings. And I would basically get a sense of where you've been, like what was your experience with where these planets were previously were, and then where are they going into? So we get a sense of
Yes.
like what's ending for you and what's beginning for you. Are you were a Taurus rising, correct?
Yes. No,
Yes.
Taurus sun sign.
Taurus sign. What was your rising sign? I forgot.
Scorpio.
Scorpio. Oh, okay. Yes, Scorpio. So yeah, you had yeah, Pluto with your social house. Yeah, so there's certain areas where you were having certain experiences and then they were shifting to others. For myself, I'm a Libra rising. I had a lot of family
Uh-huh.
generational stuff that I was processing. Then also work too was being impacted. And so I'm going to have less of a work story and I'm having more of a fun and play. It's a very good transit for Libra risings. So I offer for my services, I'm very passionate about 2025 transit readings. I do natal chart, so I look at the things where the planets were at your moment of birth. And that's really cool because it's really great to understand those tendencies, like where you are, where your kind of default state is. And that's great for like if you're doing therapy work, if you're trying to understand yourself more. Because what's really cool with astrology is it actually gives you a lot of words and like verbs and like how to
Yeah.
describe this stuff. Like I think about with like the tarot, like the cups energy, like that's a very distinct feeling of like cups
Yes.
and emotions, and then you think of like the pentacle energy, which is very money, but it's also earth and like
Yeah.
stability and stuff like that. And so there's something similar that happens with astrology of something being air signed, and being very intellectual and very
That's right.
thinking and stuff. And then you do like fire signs. It's very passionate, energy, wants to just get things done. And what's interesting as you go down your astrology journey, there's a lot of duality with tarot in terms of what I just described. But as you go through it, you can start to feel things like, oh, that feels like a air sign thing. You must have that in your reading sometimes where you like pick up on air sign stuff or earth sign stuff.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yes. Yeah.
And exactly. Even though I am not really as savvy on astrology,
Yeah.
it's sometimes it comes so clearly that I say, well, you should consult with an astrologer because even me would not, it's not my primary discipline. It comes so strong that it just can't happen all of it at this
Yeah.
time.
Yeah,
And
it's
it's
coming in
just
so
not a
strong.
coincidence. Yes. Or
Yeah,
people ask sometimes, I was doing so well, and all of a sudden I was really challenged by a situation I didn't see it coming.
yeah,
Why? And I say, I look at it and I don't see any particular reason. And I say, well, maybe check with an astrologer
yeah.
because the only thing that I could imagine could be an astrological shift. And they do and confirm
Yes.
that indeed, yes.
Yes, there's quite an exchange that happens between tarot and astrology and medium, psychic and astrology. And I think what it is, it's that same like leap when you do that leap, and you because, for example, just what you described, you picking up on astrology elements in your tarot readings, we don't need to understand why. Like, we don't need to understand what's happening. We don't need to understand there's some sort of weird relationship with tarot or intuitive hits and astrology, that there's something similar but different happening. Just know that it's a tool, and just take that leap
Yeah,
and use it as a tool. And if it's serving you, use it. And if it's not serving you, put it aside
of
and
course.
seek your I think we're an interesting point where I don't know if it's like the past 50 years or past 100 years of how science kind of emerged, where we need to understand why about things a lot more than having faith or just understanding. I think we lose a lot of tools. We kind of put a lot of tools and methods, even like Eastern versus Western medicine. Like we put a lot of things
That's
aside
right.
because we don't know empirically why something does what it does, which is such a like missed opportunity, or we're being deprived. Like I know a lot of folks like who are joining us today probably went on different health journeys where the doctors told them this,
Yeah,
and they listened for a point and then they started to listen their own voice. They go,
that's right.
okay, wait, I don't understand. And they start to go on the internet or they start to do this and they go, and they look at this Western and then they cure themselves sometimes, not always, but I had a um my lips were chapping in a weird way and went to a doctor's and they couldn't understand what was going on, and then I went on the internet and I found I had to do like a marigold extract and it cured it. So I had like 1,000 doctor
Oh,
visits, like
wow.
multiple 4 or 5 doctor visits. And then it wasn't working. And then I just, looked at Western et cetera. And I think that's what's really cool right now, where people are like listening their own intuition.
That's right.
And they are, if you're having experiences the medical side where it's not working for you and you're trusting your own intuition on what to do, I think there is an aspect of this with tarot and there's an aspect of this with astrology of like try these tools out. If it's working for you, use it, and you don't need to understand why. You don't need to understand empirically why, because astrology is a tool that's been used for thousands of years.
That's
Do you do you think that they were just gaslighting themselves the entire time? Like, they were like they were just like you know
they have
biased. Like
nothing
okay, I
else to
think it's
do.
working. I think
Yes,
it's. I think if the pharaoh used it, he was just convinced. Like it's an emperor wears no clothes moment. No, they were using it for a purpose. Like it was building a pyramid to face this moon, and there was reasons with that, or it served a purpose. It helped something, and so I think that's very helpful with that. And I think when folks who are on this call who are doing those leaps in different areas
uh-huh.
of their life where they don't need to see like clear, green lights or confirmation or all the, medical proof on why or science proof why you do something. They're trying different things out and they're just seeing if it works with guardrails, Like, I think I think it's a beautiful thing. And I think astrology is a great thing that you can start to add in their journey. Yeah.
That's definitely very fascinating, Ness. Maybe as we getting to the close of the show,
Yes.
um, maybe wanting to talk a little bit of the June patterns that we
Yes.
mentioned earlier. Yeah,
Oh my goodness. Yes. Let me share my screen. Um, because I have a really cute graphic for this. Oh, this is yeah to book me. Okay. So I made this, and this is actually the paths that the planets are going to have in the month of June. So this is where a planet will be on June 1st. Like for Venus will be here for June 1st, and this is where it will be on June 30th. This is where the sun will be for June 1st, and this is where the sun will be for June 30th. So you can just see the path it will take. And I bring this up because what's really cool for June is these planets are you can kind of see they're basically like two signs down, and that in astrology world means a sextile, which means they actually help each other out. So that means Venus is sextiling Jupiter and the Sun and Mercury loosely. And then these three are all also sextiling Mars. So I just did
Wow.
a recording with Deb yesterday, Deb Freebird, about where we kind of unpack this much further. But the astrology of June is very positive, very hopeful, very, but not just hope, it's action. Mars is involved. So um if it's like let's jump forward in time. It is December 31st, 2025, and folks are like posting on Instagram like their year in review, or you're thinking about how the
Uh-huh.
year of 2025 went. And when you're thinking about the positive things that happened in 2025, the things you're proud of, the things you're able to accomplish, or etc., that's most likely going to be things that occurred during June, because the astrology is that favorable. You have Jupiter, Sun, and Mercury loosely kind of conjunct, and that's a lot of Jupiter is very optimistic, very expansive. Mercury is clarity, thinking, thoughts, and Sun is also just like brightness and energy. So there's a lot of optimism, clarity of your thoughts. You're gonna possibly have a lot of breakthroughs. You're gonna go like, oh my gosh, this is how I should think about things, or this is how I see things. Like you're gonna feel a shift too, like I was over here and now I'm over here. And it's going to be very positive. You're going to be almost like put on a better timeline, especially something that serves you more. It just puts you in a more freeing place, a place where you feel more positive about the future, positive about yourself, positive about the world, than where we are, which I think we all need right now. Um, and then we have Venus is right over here. Also sextiling all this. Venus is value, Venus is money, Venus is also like creativity, beauty, enjoying ourselves, like self-care. Um, and then Mars is here, which is very action oriented, very passionate. And so yeah, the astrology for June is very positive. It's a pretty big deal because there's a couple, planets that are changing signs for Jupiter going into Cancer and etc. But it's very positive. And my advice to folks who are watching, if you know your chart and you know what planets are right here, you can kind of take advantage of that in terms of like
Yeah.
which things to focus on. But I would allow yourself to just step in the flow of positivity this month. And not that you're being toxic positive, that you're kind of ignoring problems or you're bypassing. It's not that. I would just let yourself be hopeful. Let yourself, and you can just do an experiment just for June. Just for June, let yourself be hopeful, let yourself envision a better future. Let yourself to kind of entertain thoughts things could actually work out, things could be better. I know it could be very safe to be, to focus on things and to focus where the crisis is and etc. But my invitation for everyone is just to go, what if it actually isn't the worst case scenario? Like, what if it was much better? So that's one thing I want to point out, just the dominant energy of June. It will feel different though. It's not like it's going to come in super, um, like a gentle, sea breeze. It's not like that. It's there's going to be some shifts, but it's going
Yeah.
to be almost a shift towards. It's going to be some shifts, but it's going to be shifts, and you're going to, oh, it's actually better here. Oh, I was over there. I was afraid of leaving there, and I'm
Right.
over here, and it's actually better. So that's the positive. The dominant astrology for June is very positive. And then one thing to be mindful of, the kind of worst astrology, the more difficult astrology, is June 15th. We have a lot of things squaring. We've got Mars in Leo squaring Uranus and Taurus, and that's a lot of tension. And then we also have Jupiter in Cancer squaring Saturn in Aries. So that's kind of like female energy squaring this masculine conservative energy. And this is all happening on the 15th. This actually is a lot of this is related to Trump's ascendant. And this particular configuration, Mars in Leo squaring Uranus and Taurus, actually happened very close to Trump's assassination attempt in Pennsylvania. So there's a lot of negative astrology actually for this day on the 15th for Trump. And I just found out that his birthday was the 14th, is the
Yes,
14th.
it is the 14th.
So,
Yeah.
what that means is that means so on your birthday where the planets are like in transiting, in comparison to your natal planets will give you a forecast of the next 12 months. So it'll give you a sense of what you're dealing with. And so because all these negative transits are actually happening so close to his birthday, that means they're part of his birthday solar return. And
Ah,
it means it's going to be a very difficult year for Trump. This transit's going to be very difficult for Trump as well. So a couple days before and after, this is probably going to be the weird way, like the worst birthday he might have. It might on the outside look like a pretty good, showmanship because I think the parade is happening on the 14th. But for him, it's probably one of the worst birthdays. And he's going to be in a really difficult birth year because all these, whatever happens on his birthday, kind of, those are the dominant energies for the next 12 months. So this is
was
going to still carry forward for the next 12 months. And for folks at
I see.
home, for knowing that this is going to be a difficult astrological day, you just want to, take it easy. Maybe you don't be as ambitious like with where you go. You don't want to be too far away from home. You want to make sure things are stocked up, or you don't want to maybe engage in those difficult conversations with friends or something. You might just want to take it easy that day because tempers will flare. Or if someone said something to trigger you, you might want to just cool off and not respond right away. So that's kind of my advice for this type of transit. Yeah. So overall, June is going to be really nice. Very, very nice. Great time to be positive and do things that make you feel very alive and happy to be alive. Yeah.
That's excellent. That's really exciting
Yes.
for the month to come.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, Ness, thank you so much for sharing a little bit more of your view of astrology and how it connects to the other disciplines. It's been very, very, very fascinating and interesting. And the more I think it's like anything, the more you hear, the more you connect with something, the more you understand it, the less it becomes intimidating. And for
Yes.
me, which I assume it's for a lot of people who are watching the show, it's the same thing.
Yes.
And so I really wanted to thank you for that and appreciate you.
Yes. And
And
my parting advice too with folks that feel intimidated by astrology, if you're someone that did really well with math or like the periodic table of elements when you were younger, or you're someone that can follow a recipe, like you can follow all of it, you're not going to improvise, then astrology is for you, especially if you're someone who loved Greek mythology, like you understood, Zeus had an affair with this person. Astrology will be really easy for you to learn. So that kind of goes to the intimidating quality that folks might have. Yeah.
yes. Well, thank you so much. And I hope we can definitely see you again on the channel and maybe for another topic related to astrology.
Yeah,
So
especially
thank you
the
so much.
tarot and astrology
Yes,
component. There's a
yes.
lot of overlap. Yeah, that'd be interesting to unpack. Yes, yes, thank you.
And bye, everyone. And thank you again, Ness.